So here we are again, back with another check-in chat with my good friend and colleague, Peter Hatherley-Greene. Peter, great to see you today. How are you keeping?
Keeping well, Darren. Thank you for asking. I'm well, but bored. I'm not sure. I'm like many people. I think we can't wait to see the end of this period, and the uncertainty is a little unsettling. But no, touch wood. I'm still well and safe and quite busy actually. So that's good.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm really pleased to hear that you are keeping well, and I'm also pleased to know that you're going through the same sort of thing as I'm going through. And the reason that I'm pleased about that, because today's topic is about empathy, and trying to put ourselves in the shoes of those other people that may be surrounding us in the workplace or remotely within our work environment. And today I think it's a relevant topic because empathy. Everyone that you talk to, they will say, yes, I've got empathy. I show empathy. And yet, if you ask people on their teams, they might say, no, they haven't got empathy. So what separates the ones that say, yes, they do have empathy and they display empathy to the ones that should be receiving that empathy and say, they haven't?
Really interesting. So what does the science teaches us? So these functional MRI machines have added a lot of data and good solid research data to emotional intelligence and to understanding about how the brain works. One of the things I've discovered recently is this concept of mirror neurons. Mirror neurons. And what they are is, when we feel something inside of us, it affects others. And what others are doing, what others are feeling, also affects us. And I'll give you an example. For example, just look at the success of the Premier League, soccer league in England, right, the UK. And look at the passion and the fervour that is brought to those games. And that's very much about feeling what other people are feeling within your particular area. Watching a sad movie, that comes out as well. Also look at the destructive power of one team member coming to work in a bad mood and how that also affects the team. A little bit like, when you hit the cue ball at the start of a snooker game, you got the diamond down there. This cue ball is the bad guy that comes in. It's infectious.
Absolutely.
So going back to your question, what is the difference? So I think first of all, number one is we're all hardwired for connection. I think that's part of being human. But for a lot of us, and I don't include myself in that, but for a lot of us, we don't seem to show it or know how to react to it quite the same way. For example, one of the companies I worked for in the UAE, 6 Seconds, they have this definition of what empathy is, okay? And I think it's a really nice definition. They say empathy is recognizing and appropriately responding to others' emotions.
I like that.
So there's two parts there. So there's a part of, okay, so if I'm looking at you now and I see something in your face or in your behaviors, I can infer your emotional state. Like if your head's down, you've got a furrowing brow, if you look distracted, if you've got glasses off, you're doing this.
Something into a handkerchief.
Yeah, yes, that's the more obvious one. But I could probably, if I saw you like that, I would think Darren's stressed or he's tired or he's worried about something. If I see you, yoing, and your arms up in the air and you're jumping up and down with a big smile on your face, I probably suspect that you've won a lottery somewhere around the world, whether it's the one of the UAE. That's a very easy one to infer.
Yeah.
So we definitely will notice. But you have to have felt that feeling yourself before you can notice it in others.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
So those that say, yes, I do have empathy, a lot of the time they are expressing sympathy. They're feeling sorry for that person, which, they're almost at the end of the scale because they have got no reference that they can go to because they haven't gone through the same situation that the person that is sharing these particular feelings and emotions that have gone through themselves.
You're absolutely right. I mean, Dr. Brené Brown from the States, social scientist, I think her TED talk on TED is the third most popularly viewed TED talk. She talks about vulnerability, because showing empathy is a vulnerable choice, right?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
Because you immediately expose yourself because you're letting the other person know that you have also felt that feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she's put out a really good RSA short about what's the difference between sympathy and empathy. And this is what she had to say. So empathy fuels connection. Clearly, if I show that I understand how you're feeling right now, not necessarily verbalizing it, but if I come and stand next to you and just say, look, I'm here. That's all what you need to say,
Yeah.
And that fuels it. Sympathy is the opposite. Sympathy drives disconnection.
Yeah.
Because, because what you're doing is, you're saying sorry to someone. I'm sorry about your father. I'm sorry that you lost your son. I'm sorry. And that's more about the person speaking rather than the person receiving.
Exactly, yes. Yeah.
It makes the speaker feel better because they feel they've given a gift.
That's right.
They may even misguidedly have felt that they're showing sympathy. So empathy towards the other person, but they're not.
No. And again, I talk about this in workshops when we are specifically dealing with empathy and how that can go forward to, really resolve problems once you start to address them from an empathetic approach. And people nod their heads to everything that you're saying around empathy. And then when you go around and you start to have some breakout sessions and you hear how people are approaching that empathetic journey, it's actually sympathetic journey that they're actually working along as opposed to empathy. So it's a fine line. But to me, they're opposite ends of the scale, but it's a fine line between recognizing empathy and then using sympathy.
Yes, I think there's a few terms in life, aren't there, that we get sort of mixed up. And I think the empathy, sympathy, disconnection is definitely one of them. What's your feeling generally about how leaders in the modern world are showing or attempting to show empathy? Because it's one of the things that a lot of leaders are now trying to do it. But I feel, from my observations, there's a lot of leaders are faking it.
It coins that saying, doesn't it? Fake it till you make it. But if you look at genuine empathetic leaders, and I'm going to use Richard Branson as a prime example here, that is, first and foremost, a wonderful human being. And everything that he's done has been about doing for other people. And if you look at how he leads the people that are, I would say, very fortunate enough to be working with him, he leads them from a very empathetic strength, I would say. And I don't think you can really fake that. I think it's either there or it's not. And he realizes that is one of his strengths. Obviously he has many, but that is one of his major strengths, showing how vulnerable he can be to his people. And look what he gets back in return from them. I think also, Peter, where you are has a big impact on whether you see this empathetic approach from your leadership teams or not. And the part of the world that we're in, if you think about the culture that goes along with being in the Middle East, that is, I think, regarded as a weakness. So if you show yourself to be vulnerable in a sense that you don't necessarily know all of the answers, and you're then relying on your team to help get to the resolution collectively, that's deemed to be a weakness. So
I absolutely agree. That's it. I mean, I lived here for 25 years, and that's the model, because it's based on the model of the sheikh. If we go back, over 7,000 years where people have lived here in the region, you can understand why a strong leader was important, because the decisions that leader made were often life and death decisions.
Yes.
Like, for example, in summertime, often was a time to go out fishing, or lately in around the 18th century, they went looking for lulu, for pearl. You had to decide when to move up into the mountains to grow crops and get fruit. You had to know who to align your particular family group with a larger tribal group, and when sometimes to break that alliance because someone else can offer another deal. So, you know, that has come into the 21st century, that model. I think it's also trickled down into the family units where the father is seen little like a sheikh in terms of bestowing wisdom, bestowing or encouraging loyalty in return for, you know, gifts, protection, which is basically the agreement for a sheikh and his tribe. So the question, as you just raised it, is the model still applicable in the 21st century?
And I mean, if you start to fast forward post COVID-19, that model, I think, is going to be having to change at some stage, because probably sooner rather than later, because, you know, if you think about how the dynamics of working day to day has changed, that model also has to change.